Welcome to People. I'm Micah Matera. Let's get started. Reverend Otis Moss III is the senior pastor of the historic Trinity United Church of Christ on Chicago's South Side. His latest book is Dancing in the Darkness, Spiritual Lessons for Thriving Turbulent Times. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's my delight to be here with you.
Well, turbulent times. We are in turbulent times. And I know that your father worked side by side with Reverend King, and things haven't changed that much, have they?
There has been some external changes, let's put it that way.
Okay.
But in terms of the challenges that we face, we still have some of the same challenges that we faced during the 50s and 60s, we face today. There has been a mutation of what we are facing. Just like any virus, the virus of the original sin of this country has mutated.
That's interesting how you put it. How do we change the mutation? How do we just get rid of it? How do we kill the virus?
Well, one of the things that if you were going to kill a virus, you have to recognize that you have it in the first place, which means that you have to be inoculated with it, inoculation. And that inoculation for our transformation, I believe, are several values. One being love, the other being justice, and the willingness to face the challenges of the past in order to shape a new future.
Now, are you talking specifically the black community, the nation, the government? Who are you talking about who needs to change?
I'm talking about America, the democratic experiment we call America. W. Du Bois calls it the yet-to-be United States of America, this unfinished cathedral. We must face the original sins, or the original sin, as one particular writer talks about it, that original sin of stolen land and stolen labor. If we don't face that, it's not possible for us to transform this republic.
So reparations?
I think reparations are an appropriate conversation in the 21st century.
And a lot of pushback on that for sure in so many ways. Evanston is working on it. Other places are working on it. But how do you get it so everyone's working on it?
Well, it's fascinating that when we talk about reparations, if we're talking about reparations for the Japanese, that people have that conversation. If we're talking about reparations in reference to the Jewish community, we are having that conversation. But when it comes to indigenous people, and when it comes to people of African descent, there is suddenly a pushback because we have framed these communities as if they are problematic and they have caused the problems instead of seeing that community through the lens of trauma.
You talk about imagination, that we have to have imagination. We imagine to be this, we imagine to be that. But you have to feel it. You've got to know it to get that vision. But not everyone has that vision. I mean, every day we see violence. We see people not going past their neighborhoods, not going downtown, not seeing what they can become. How do we do that?
I think that you hit the nail on the head. The idea of imagination. We need radical Imagineers in our community, people who are willing to pour into the next generation. We need radical Imagineers of people who can reconceive of the way that we work our republic. We need radical Imagineers, whether they are artists or whether they're people in entrepreneurship. How can we conceive of a new republic, one that does not repeat the continual challenges of the past, but comes up with new ways to engage the future?
I love what you're saying. I'm sure everybody out there loves what you're saying, but how do we put it into action? How do we make it happen? I mean, you're thinking one way, other people are thinking other ways. We all have to be on the same page to do that. I mean, is there an answer to this violence? Is it giving kids jobs? I mean, there's so many different ideas. There's so many different groups trying to make the change.
I think the answer to violence is actually a very simple one. All of the research that has been done, when you look at intervention, specifically people who are violence interrupters, number one, if you engage in investment in communities that have not been invested in, you make a shift. You can map the violence in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Detroit, in any community, and make a direct connection in reference to issues of poverty. So we need an intervention. Let me give you an example. The example of Richmond, California. They were able to drop their violence rate by 70%. 70% when they simply hired young people who had been justice involved, who had been trained and wanted to make a shift in their community. And they went out door to door, block to block, corner to corner, and they saw a 70% reduction in violence. And here's the thing, it's cheaper to invest on the front end than it is on the back end after someone has been injured, shot, killed, or we invest in a large amount of money in what we call the prison industrial complex.
Sounds like Malcolm X, and I know that you've talked a lot about Malcolm X and how he talked about investing in your community and things like that. At one time, we did invest in our communities. At one time, it was like that. It wasn't as bad as it is now, but it takes people to get in there and to actually to move it and make it happen, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There is a necessity for us not to just invest on a large scale, but I'm talking about local, block to block. That's where the power is. If you want to change something globally, if you want to change something citywide, start with your block.
You have to. Yeah,
start with
block
the
by
block,
yeah.
and you will change the city. You change the block, you change the neighborhood, you change the neighborhood, you change the city, you change the city, you change the county, you change the county, you change the state, you change the state. Guess what? You start changing the nation. And so it starts local if you want to change things on a global scale.
Let's talk a little bit about mental health. I know you're a big proponent of getting help, specifically in the Black community, because a lot of people, and you see homeless people, the majority of them are Black people, and they're mentally ill. How do we get them off the streets? I know that you were at the new mayor, Brandon Johnson. You did the invocation as inauguration. Have you talked with him about these things, about dealing with mental health in the community, dealing with the violence in the community?
Well, I was just blessed to have a conversation with him before he became mayor, and he had a real priority in and around the issues of mental health. We can no longer weaponize people who are mentally ill. For example, it is inappropriate and it's unfair for us to call armed officers for a mental health crisis. We need a team of people who are professional. You're not prepared, nor are you trained. It'd be example. It would be like calling a police officer and say, "I've got a fire going on in my house. Can you put it out?" That's not my job. I can cordon off the area, make sure no one else is injured, but we need to call in the professionals.
So will we see changes like that, you think, moving forward in his administration?
It is my prayer and my hope that we will, and that we will recognize that the people on the street, many people who are homeless, we're talking about mentally ill. The largest mental health facility in the United States is the Cook County Jail.
Right. Right.
And so we have to make a shift and realize that we are weaponizing people who are mentally ill and saying that there is something deeply wrong with them, let's lock them up, when actually we're talking about a public health initiative that can transform our community.
Reverend, thank you so much for being here today. You can find Reverend Moss's book, Dancing in the Darkness, Spiritual Lessons for Thriving in Turbulent Times, on Amazon.